I had called my father, and I said, Dad, I was asked to leave school. He said, okay. And I said, well, I don't have any money to get home. And he says, well, that's going to be a problem, isn't it? And he hung up on me. So I rolled up on him and I said, excuse me, sir, is there any work that we can do around here to earn half a tank of gas and maybe a sandwich or something? And he turned his head and spit out his big chewing tobacco. Well, this is good. I'm going to swear here for a second, but he says, I reckon you can clean the shitters.
All right, today we're here with Bob. He's going to share a little bit about his life and experiences. So why don't you just start off with your childhood, Bob?
Well, first, Louis, let me say thank you for inviting me onto your Golden Nuggets program. I consider it an honor, and hopefully it'll help you get some views. I don't know who wants to know about my history, but I guess we'll find out.
I'm sure plenty of people will be interested.
I was born in South Bend, Indiana in 1960. I was the fourth son to Eleanor and Walter Fox. We lived in South Bend. They moved there in the 50s from Philadelphia. Myself, my younger brother, and my younger sister were all born in South Bend, while my older brothers were all born in Philadelphia. We got to 1971, I believe it was, we moved down to South Florida. My father was a physician in Indiana, and he was offered a position here in South Florida at what was called Las Olas General Hospital, down on Las Olas Boulevard, obviously. He moved our family down here in 1971. My mother and him split in, I believe it was 1978. I was away at college, and my father moved back up to the Midwest from here probably around 1979, 1980, and the rest of the family stayed here because there was no snow. A few years ago, coming home from a trip, my sister Sandy was here, and as I walked in the house after getting off a red-eye flight, it was about 6 or 7 a.m., I walked in, my sister was visiting us, and she says, why don't you get yourself a cup of coffee and a cigar, and let's go outside and talk. So I'm very inquisitive as to what she might want to talk about when she holds up a picture to me and she says, who does that look like? I said, well, that looks like our brother Jim. And she says, no, that's our brother Bob. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, this is our other brother, Bob. So we found out we had a brother from another mother after 60 some odd years of life that we didn't know.
Wow.
His daughter had done a DNA test. My daughter Kelsey had done a DNA test. My niece Megan had done a DNA test. And as soon as my now niece's DNA test hit whatever service that was, the three of them were all potential matches for first cousins. So they began chatting about the timeline. He's from Philadelphia, where my dad was at that same time. So my younger brother Bob is 6 months younger than I am.
Wow.
So recently, my niece, my sister's daughter Kyra, got married last summer in New York, and my brother Bob was there. And my sister just had the best time going around introducing the both of us and saying, this is my brother Bob, and this is my other brother Bob. I don't know if you're old enough to get that nuance from the old Bob Newhart show with the two brothers named Daryl, but she had a great time doing that. Nice. So that's basically the Fox family that I came from.
Gotcha.
And where we came from.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing. What type of family were you in? Did you guys have money? Did you guys, have to struggle a bit more? How did that go?
No, we never really struggled. My father being a physician, he always made a pretty good living. We had a really big house up in South Bend, Indiana, with basketball court, football field on the side of the house. There's always plenty of kids to play with because we had 5 brothers, and even when the neighborhood kids weren't around, we could have a game. But there was always neighborhood kids at our house, both in South Bend, and then when we moved down to South Florida, we were kind of the neighborhood hangout, football games, basketball games. Our mother, she was a saint, raising 5 boys and a daughter with very little help from her husband, being a physician who was constantly at the hospital. Mm-hmm. We're a very tight-knit family even to this day. Like I speak with my 2 of my brothers and my sister almost daily. And I'll call my other brothers at least once a week just to check on them, see how they're doing. Mm-hmm. especially now that we're all getting older. You know, a couple of my brothers are in their 70s now, so you know, don't know how much longer we'll have the chance to do that. So try to take every chance that we can get. You know, I'm not one of those people who are going to come back and start blaming my parents for all my misgivings, because they did everything they could for us. I mean, they gave us everything that we ever asked for. I mean, we had to work, don't get me wrong. My father was very big on the work ethic, and I started working in restaurants when I was 12. And if you really wanted something big, you had to earn it. He wasn't going to give it to you. But, you know, he was a very good provider for us. We just didn't get to see him a lot because of the nature of his work.
Yeah. You know, that probably had its challenges, you know, not having your dad around as much. But it's great to hear that you had such a positive experience. Do you think you could tell us a little bit about your school memories? You know, take us through elementary, middle, high school. How was that for you? What were you involved in?
Well, up in South Bend, it was all good. You know, I just went to elementary school there. I had a bunch of friends. I finished the 5th grade there, and I came down here in '71. And back at the time, they were trying a new concept in the public schools called the open concept. It was over here down in Fort Lauderdale at Rickards Middle School, where there's no walls inside of the building. So it was essentially just one huge room with blackboard dividers. So I could be sitting in my math class and talking to my buddy who's in science class right next to us. So the concept didn't work very well.
Yeah, I can tell.
So they blew it up after several years. But my mother, she was very big on the education side of things. She didn't think that that was a conducive environment for me to be in. So she pulled me out and moved me over to a private school, which was really just in its infancy, called American Academy, which is owned by American Heritage. So the academy was where you went when you were a little bit behind your grade level until you caught up, and then you could transfer over to American Heritage. And that's what I did. I finished my 6th grade education at American Academy, and then I moved to American Heritage for 7th and 8th grade. So again, we're in private school. After I got out of American Heritage, I was accepted at Cardinal Gibbons High School, another parochial school, which I attended for about 9 weeks, and didn't really care for it much, and they didn't care for me much either. So we had a mutual parting of the ways. And I enlisted over at Northeast High School, which is a public school. Played football over at Northeast. And my sophomore season, between my sophomore and junior year, I got caught in a bar by the head football coach. Me and a couple of the other guys on the team were out having a couple of beers, and the football coaches all walked into that bar. So that was the end of my football career at Northeast. So I wanted to go play some football somewhere. All this time, since we'd been here in the early 70s, my brother and I were altar boys for St. Pius X Church down in Fort Lauderdale. And back then, the pastor was a gentleman by the name of Timothy Kelly, Father Kelly. Father Kelly was a great guy. My mother called Father Kelly because of our relationship with him at St. Pius X and asked if there was any way that he would take me into St. Thomas Aquinas. So he pulled my transcripts from Cardinal Gibbons and Northeast, and they weren't good. So he said, I'll let him in under one condition: he can't play football his junior season. So I went in under academic probation. I had to maintain a B average in school just to stay, let alone to play football the next year. So I did. I tried to pull my grades up, and I did that okay, and I got to play football my senior year. And St. Thomas Aquinas back then, back in 1977, was still a very small private Catholic school, which is now one of the biggest sporting powerhouses in the nation. And George Smith, who actually coached me in the late 70s, just retired as the athletic director a couple of seasons ago. But back then, it's really where you wanted to go to school.
Could you tell us more about your experience with football? So you played in your senior year. Did you continue at all after that, or did you kind of just end there?
No, I played one more season. I went out to a small school in Kansas called Sterling College, NAIA school. I went there sight unseen. They offered me a partial scholarship to play football out there. So I flew out to this, from being in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with the nightlife and everything else. I flew out to the middle of the state of Kansas, sight unseen. I got there and I was like, what the heck did I do? I'm out in the middle of cornfields. It was a great experience. Looking back, I didn't know it at the time, but it really did help me form a greater appreciation for everything I came from. But the people out in Kansas were very, very welcoming. Local farmers would come by football practice and bring us watermelons from their farms, fresh meat. They'd barbecue for us. I mean, it was really like a great atmosphere to play football in. I made a traveling squad. I long snapped for punts and extra points. So I did get to travel around the state and up into Nebraska and a few other things. But the state of Kansas itself is as flat as this floor is in this living room that we're sitting in. But the people were awesome and hardworking, down-to-earth folks. And those are the type of people I like to hang out with.
Nice. So maybe you can share a little bit of wisdom on your experience with football, maybe some tips or tricks for, aspiring athletes.
Well, I don't know if I'm the best person, being that I only got to play 1 year into college, but football's like anything else. You really have to apply yourself. What you see on Saturdays is just a culmination of all the work that goes on behind the scenes. They're waking up at 4 o'clock and going running or going to the gym and doing all the things that nobody sees. All they see is the flashy stuff on television on a Saturday afternoon. But these athletes of today, they put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you have to compete. Everybody's bigger, stronger, faster than they used to be back in my day. I mean, an offensive lineman in my day was 220 to 250 maybe, and now they're 3 1/4 to 350, and they're running 5 foot flat 40-yard dashes at 300 plus pounds. It's a whole different game than what I know, but the discipline and everything, that's never changed. You still have to be very, very disciplined.
I think that's some excellent advice. I think that's a good segue. So you were in college, you were interested in football. What were you studying, and how far did you go into college?
Well, that's the problem. I didn't really study. I had majored in physical education. So I took a lot of classes like swimming and weightlifting and anything I could to really avoid the classroom aspect of it. So I got through my first semester, and I went back after Christmas break, and I found myself in some more trouble with alcohol with some buddies of mine on the football team, and in a small community like Sterling, Kansas, that's frowned upon. And they asked us to go back to wherever it was we came from. So me and a buddy of mine, he was from Oviedo, Florida. Oviedo, yeah, just outside Orlando. But anyway, I had called my father, and I said, Dad, I was asked to leave school. He said, okay. And I said, well, I don't have any money to get home. And he says, well, that's going to be a problem, isn't it? And he hung up on me. I think I had like $20 in the bank. So I withdrew my $20. My friend, who also got kicked out of school, was driving home. So we were following each other from Kansas down into Florida. We got into Louisiana. We're both flat broke. We got no money between us. We have 2 vehicles that we have to put gas in. And we roll up into this small town, into this gas station, and it's just like something out of a movie. There's an old man sitting out there in bib overalls with a dog sitting next to the chair.
Did he have a shotgun in hand as well?
He did not have a shotgun, surprisingly. I'm sure there was one behind the counter in the filling station. So I rolled up on him and I said, excuse me, sir, is there any work that we can do around here to earn half a tank of gas and maybe a sandwich or something? And he turned his head and spit out his big chewing tobacco. Well, this is good. I'm going to swear here for a second, but he says, I reckon you can clean the shitters. So for the next few hours, we cleaned the latrines in that filling station. We cleaned the garage. We reorganized his tool benches and all that. And he gave us each a half a tank of gas and a sandwich and a soda pop and sent us on the way.
That's not a bad deal.
It wasn't a bad deal at all. We made it all the way over to my buddy's house in Florida, where his mom lent me $20, made me a sandwich, and gave me a can of soda, and I drove the rest of the way down here to South Florida. All this time when I was when I was going to high school, I was working in restaurants, bussing tables on the weekends, trying to make some money. So I went back to the restaurant where I was always bussing tables, and I went there full time. Tried to get into Florida State University. I was declined. Never went back to school. Just worked in restaurants until I was about 24 years old. At the age of 25, I found myself living up in Cleveland, Ohio, where my dad lived, staying with him. I was working in a glue and caulking factory. So my first job in the factory was grinding glue that makes caulk. So I'd climb up this 30-foot platform and I'd have a big pallet full of bales of rubber, and I'd take a piece of rubber and I'd throw it in this chute, and it would go down the chute and it would go into this grinding apparatus. And you could hear the difference from when you throw it in there until when it was done. We call it, and I'm in the car wash industry, we call it the car wash song. When everything's running perfect, you hear the noise. So when something goes out of tune, there's something different. Here, that was my rubber grinding song. I'd throw a piece of rubber down the chute, listen for it to change, grab another piece, throw it down there. So for 10 hours a day, this is what I did.
Was it at least heavy? Did you get some exercise?
It was heavy, but you couldn't wear any earphones or anything because you had to listen for the pitch to change.
Yeah.
So it was mind-numbingly boring.
So you could say you were in a sticky situation.
Very good. Yeah, it was a sticky situation. But they saw potential in my rubber grinding ability, Lewis, and they soon promoted me to tube taker offer.
Oh.
So as the tubes of caulk and glue would spin on the assembly line, I would take them off and put them in a box for 10 hours a day. This is long before factories became very automated, obviously. So I was making $2.85 an hour working at the factory. And even with overtime and everything else, it was still a couple $100 a week. So I decided, it's time to move back down to South Florida. Being in the bar business, tending bar, I made a pretty good living for a 24, 25-year-old guy, and single. But when I moved back down here, I decided that I wanted to, one, marry the woman that I'm married to. So that was my number one goal. And number two, get a job where I could work during the day, and because married life isn't real conducive to being a bartender working until 3 a.m. So when I got down here, I started looking into one ads for work outside of the bar and restaurant industry. And as I'm looking through the ads, I see every restaurant, bartender, waiter, valet parker, everything for the service industry that we're known for down here. And down at the very bottom of the page, there's a 2-line ad that says, assistant manager wanted at a car wash. And the first thing that popped into my head was, who the heck would want to work at a car wash? You're far too young to have ever seen the movie Car Wash starring Richard Pryor, but it painted car washing in a very negative light. These guys were wearing these dirty coveralls, had smokes hanging out of their mouths, had dirty rags on their shoulders. They're peddling weed out of the men's room, and that's what I thought the car wash industry was like. And to be honest with you, in the 70s, that was pretty close to being true. So I didn't call the ad. I took a bartending job, and I was dissatisfied with it. I got to find something else to do. I went back to the one ad a few weeks later, and that ad was still there for an assistant manager at a car wash. So I called the ad, and as fate would have it, a gentleman by the name of Paul Fazio answered the phone. Paul Fazio and his brother Michael owned a chain of car washes between South Florida and Boston. Their father, Sonny Fazio, owned a company called Sonny's Enterprises, which sold car wash parts and supplies and equipment. So I went and interviewed with Paul Fazio on a rainy day. We sat in a little tiny cashier's booth, really no bigger than this area I'm sitting in here. And I looked at him at some point during the interview. I said, not for nothing, sir, but you haven't washed a single car while I've been here. How do you make any money doing this? He said, well, on a rainy day like today, we send everybody home because the customers just don't come. But if the sun's out here on Saturday, we'll wash 500 cars at this store, and we'll wash 1,000 cars at our Hollywood location. I said, you can wash 1,000 cars in a single day? He said, yeah, we do it pretty frequently. I said, well, I'll tell you what, that sounds intriguing to me. I said, I've never seen anybody wash cars like that. I said, even if you don't hire me, I'm going to go down there on Saturday and watch how you do it. He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll put you on the clock on Saturday. Go down there and vacuum cars, drive them on the conveyor, pump gas, wax them, do all the different tasks on the lot and see if it's something that interests you. He said that if you like it, I'll move you into the management program. And if you don't like it, you got paid for your time. I said, you got a deal. Went down to that location. It's just south of Sheridan Street on 441. Still there, still a car wash today. We washed 923 cars. I still remember the number. We were a full-service car wash where we were vacuuming them out, washing the windows. We put them on the conveyor. No customer stayed in the car at that time. The conveyor would pull them through. We would get in the exit in, wash the windows, dry the body down, et cetera, et cetera. We had about 40 employees working that day to do that type of volume. As I was driving home that night, I'm thinking, man, that was a 10-hour day. It seems like it was over in 10 minutes. I mean, it was just like organized chaos. It was so fast-paced, and it was kind of fun to do all this stuff. I said, I think I can do this till I find a real job. I'm still in the car wash industry today, 40 years later. In fact, July 1st marked my 40th anniversary in the car wash industry. I worked with the Sonny's family for a few years, and I left them and I opened a car wash here in Boca Raton, not far from where we are right now, over on Dixie Highway, called Fox's All Pro Car Wash. It was a full-service car wash and high-end detail shop. I owned and operated that for 13 years. As I got into my 40s, chasing help around a car wash lot wasn't real conducive to my health, or my mental health, at least anyway. So one day, as I was shorthanded, and we were really busy because the sun had come out after a week of rain and a lot of guys quit because I couldn't give them any hours. I'm outside drying cars off on a busy Saturday, and this couple approaches me, and they tap me on the shoulder as I'm down cleaning a wheel out on a BMW, and they said, "We would like to buy your car wash." And I looked at him and I said, "Make an offer." They gave me a number right then and there. I said, "You come back Monday with a contract and I'll sign it." And they did. So that was in November of 2002. So I was completely done at the car wash by Thanksgiving of that year. So I took from November of 2002 until got into the summer of 2003, and I started, realizing how much money I actually spent when I'm not working. And I knew I couldn't withstand this for very much longer. I have to go to work. So I decided it's time to get back to work, and the car wash industry still was intriguing to me. So I called Paul one day out of the blue. I said, "Let me call Paul Fazio. Maybe he's got something," because his company's growing like crazy. We talked for a while on the phone, and I asked him if he had any work. He says, "No, I really don't." He said, "But I haven't seen you in a long time. Why don't you drive out to the factory? Let me show you what we've done. We built this new building, and let's just catch up." I said, "You got a deal." So we made a date for later that week. I went out there. We sat in Paul's office. He gave me a tour of the new facility and everything. And as I got up to leave, he shook my hand and he said, "See you Monday." I said, "I thought you didn't have any work for me." He says, "Well, right now, I don't. 6 months from now or a year from now, I'm going to need you and you'll be doing something else." So I said, "What am I going to do?" He says, "I have absolutely no idea." So that was 22 years ago. Nobody at Sonny's really knows what I do. But for 22 years, I've been showing up and they've been paying me. So it's worked out pretty good for both of us.
Nice. Not a bad deal.
My first 10 years at Sonny's, I was in the sales division and sales and consulting. In about 2013, I made a move over to the Car Wash College side of things. Car Wash College is an educational school that we put together to help car washers get better at what they do so that they don't have to rely on outside service to come in and fix their car washes. We also teach them how to manage car wash locations. I also go around the country and I talk about how to get into the car wash industry, how much it costs, what the potential returns are, things like that. In 2003, we're a very small company with about 70 total employees. I think we were doing 30 some odd $1 million a year in revenue at the time. Now we're over 2,000 employees and close to $1 billion a year in revenue. So the business has really exploded. The car wash industry has exploded at the same time. But it's been a blast. I have absolutely no regrets about going to the car wash industry. When I had my wash for 13 years, it was it's how we fed the family.
Hearing about your career and the experiences that you had, do you think that you could share a little bit of advice for young people who are in the workforce and maybe a bit of what helped you to be successful in your field?
Sure. Work hard. Sonny Fazio, who's the founder of our company, was one of my heroes, and I don't have many. Sonny had a second grade education. He dropped out of school in second grade when he was like 9 years old, living in the streets of Boston. He was shining shoes and selling newspapers. When he got old enough, well, actually he wasn't old enough, but he enlisted in the Navy and went over and fought in World War II. When he came back, he was working in a wedding dress manufacturing facility, and he was actually hand sewing wedding dresses. Very good with his hands, very, very smart. People used to ask him all the time, Sonny, is this really what you want to do? You want to make wedding dresses? He's like, no, I want to wash cars. He said, but right now there's no machines that will wash cars. When somebody makes that machine, I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to go into the car wash business. In 1947, Life magazine came out with an article entitled The 2-Minute Car Washer. That article was given to Sonny by a woman who later became his sister-in-law. Sonny went to the dress shop and quit that day. He went out and raised $17,000 to open his first car wash in Lynn, Massachusetts. The people that are watching this, unfortunately, never had the pleasure of meeting Sonny Fazio, but I can tell you unequivocally that $17,000 that Sonny Fazio raised, I'm certain came through illegal means. But that was Sonny Fazio. Built it up to a chain of car washes, sold them to his oldest son, Michael, in 1973, and retired and moved to South Florida. 1978, that's when he founded Sonny's as we know it today. Sonny's, the car wash factory where I work, selling 3 items: little plastic vacuum nozzles for car washes, a piece of aluminum that we tied brushes together with, and he was hand sewing chamois that were going on the drying machines at the time. So he started with a 1,000 square foot warehouse. Today, Sonny's is over 1.5 million square feet. So you talk about the American dream, Sonny Fazio epitomized it. So Sonny never had an office in our building. Sonny would work out on the factory floor, building car wash equipment with the assemblers. And he would often bet them, you know, who could assemble equipment more quickly, et cetera, et cetera. Sonny was just a character. So no matter what you're doing in life, if you approach it with enthusiasm and take pride in what you do, it's a stepping stone to something greater, right? You know, and I got to Sonny's as an assistant car wash manager in 1985. I never dreamed I would be a senior vice president of the largest car wash equipment manufacturer in the world. But obviously luck is involved. Being in the right place at the right time is involved, but also hard work and perseverance are involved. Yeah, most guys that I know that retire around my age die rather quickly. And I'm not ready to die. I got 2 beautiful grandkids. I got my beautiful daughter and son-in-law, and of course my gorgeous wife that I've been married to for 38 years earlier this month. There's a lot of stuff I want to do still. Plus the money's pretty good.
I'm sure.
So I don't want to walk away from that. And I really enjoy what I do.
I also want to say congratulations, 38 years with your wife.
45 in total, 38 married.
That's an excellent achievement.
Yep.
I think that would be an excellent segue to tell us a little bit about your experience, you know, being married. Could you share a little bit of advice and things that might help those who are getting married now or who have been, you know, married for a short time? What did you do to make it successful and to make it a positive experience for the both of you guys?
Well, we met very, very young. The first time I met her was in 1972. 72? No, like 76. She was only 12 years old at the time, and I was 16. She was friends with a friend of my girlfriend at the time. I was dating a girl that was older than Carrie, obviously, my wife. But the three girls came over to our house, and we were all swimming in the pool. I got a picture of my wife in our swimming pool when she was 12 years old. So I thought to myself, wow, that little girl's cute, but you know, she's 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm a big high school guy. I can't look at her. So a few years pass, and I'm working in a restaurant, and I'm working with this girl named Jennifer. And Jennifer and I are pretty good friends, and her fiance, Don, works at the bar next door, and I work at the bar next door part-time as well. Well, they're gonna get married, so they asked me if I would be an usher in their wedding. I'm like, I'd be honored. So in being in the usher in that wedding, I didn't know it, but Carrie was Jennifer's sister. So now I run into Carrie again after all these years. And I'm like, oh my God, that girl is gorgeous. So I don't think anything of it because she's still only, she's fairly young. So some time passes. They got married in January, and I believe it was a couple of months gone by. One night I'm staying at my mother's house while she's out of town in New Jersey for the summer. The phone rings. I answer it. It's Carrie on the phone. And she says, would you like to go to the movies with me tonight? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So her and her sister and brother-in-law Don and the four of us all go to a movie in Pompano. It was called the Movies at Pompano back then. I don't think it's still there. And then we went to a Pickles Pub, which was right next door to it after, and had a couple of drinks. And then we went to another place, and that was our first date. And it went very, very well. So we started seeing each other. I went a little rogue for a while in the early years, and I lost her for a bit. And like I said, when I was living in Ohio, I wanted to move back down here with the sole purpose of marrying Carrie. And that was my goal. I came back down here, and I had to start the courtship all over again. And she was playing very hard to get, which I understood. But eventually, my charm and wit won her back. And we were married on November 6, 1987 at St. John the Baptist Church. It was a beautiful ceremony, and we were dead broke when we were getting married. We had to pay for everything ourselves. To be honest with you, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, was marrying her. Starting a business and all that stuff, very difficult, but she supported me through everything. Financially sometimes as well. She's always worked. She was with TGI Fridays for almost 30 years on the accounting side of things. She's been working in country clubs for the past 12 or 13 years. Smart as a whip. Can be mean as a snake when she wants to be, but she's also got a heart of gold. Give you the shirt off of her back. Yeah, honestly, I don't know where my life would be without her.
What lessons have you picked up over the years of being married?
Don't sweat the small stuff, and a lot of small stuff, right? So if she wants to go out on a Saturday, but there's a Notre Dame football game on, and I'm a big Notre Dame fan, I'll go do what she wants to do on that Saturday. Notre Dame's going to play 11 more times, and I'll catch another game. So you got to pick your battles. If it's the small stuff, just let it roll off. Happy wife, happy life type of situation. It's worked out pretty well. Now, I don't let her walk all over me, but there's times where we'll have our disagreements. But usually, if I disagree with her, she'll think, he doesn't disagree very often. Maybe I should rethink this. And we're fair with each other, which I think is a big deal. And I can't imagine life without her.
Nice. I think that's a good encouragement to those people, young people who might be considering getting married. The statistics.
Get married, have babies. It's we have to keep populating the world and raising them with Christ and doing the right thing.
Yeah, and like I was saying, the statistics, they can be discouraging because, I think over 50% of marriages, end in divorce. And so
that's because they make it too easy. Nobody wants to work in a marriage. If they have a couple of fights, they're like, all right, I'm out because I've been able to quit everything along growing up. The parents coddled children for, as they were growing up, they got in trouble at school. Oh, let's quit this school and let's go to another school. Or the parent would call or the teacher would call the parent and say, your child's acting up at school. Well, it must have been something that you did. Couldn't be my baby that did that. If a kid is, kids still need discipline. And if you're not going to provide it for them, they're going to grow up with that sense of entitlement. And if they can quit without ramification, what's quitting a marriage? Might be a financial burden, a financial cost, but hey. But if you make a commitment to another person and you do it in front of God, you should honor that commitment. At least try to work on things. And then if you can't come to some type of resolution, then maybe talk about it. But until that time, you're still married to that person. You should try to work through these type of things.
I would say you've provided a lot of excellent advice, on career-related things, on relationship-related topic. Do you think that you could wrap up this video with one last nugget of wisdom that's going to be beneficial to everyone who's watching?
Pray. I'm not a big churchgoer. I do go occasionally to your guys' church. I was raised Catholic, where we went to Mass every week. I was an altar boy, et cetera, et cetera. But I never stop praying, even though I don't go to Mass or go to church on a regular basis. I pray several times a day. I'm very thankful for what the Lord's blessed me with, and I tell Him every day. And as long as you have a relationship with Him, your life's going to be a lot better. That's all I got.
Well, I think that's been more than enough. I appreciate having you on today. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thanks for having me, Louis. I appreciate it. I hope this goes well for everybody.